Hello, I'm Mark Hampton and this is my proposal for assignment 2A printed publication. The topic I've chosen is place branding, which I think is quite interesting, especially in a historical context. It seems to be a fairly recent thing, and unlike other branding, it's got quite a large number of stakeholders, potentially everybody who lives in that city. The key to this book is picking a good narrative. I looked at three options. Firstly, picking two cities which have undergone a lot of change and thus needed to be rebranded to fit that. Secondly, parallel cities, looking for two cities that had a lot of commonality to see how that affected their branding. And lastly, just picking two exemplars, two that have been very successful and fairly recent. That third option is the one I've decided to go with, mainly due to being able to find enough information around them. On visualization, I need to include in the book, there's a few options here, and I could actually do a few of these. It could be a timeline of place branding, the phases of a place branding project, the different facets and types of place branding in some kind of diagram or visualization. In terms of names, I've put a few options there, but the one I'm going with is placing places. And here is the branding for the two cities I've chosen. Melbourne as the Australian city. You can see it's quite a striking branding. It was done about 11 years ago now, but still fairly recent. And the second one is Porto, the second largest city in Portugal, which has a lovely branding based around the city's tiles, which cover a lot of the buildings and are in blue and white. The book will have three main sections to it. Firstly, a introductory about city branding kind of section, which goes through history, different types of branding, etc. Then a deep dive into Melbourne's branding, and then Porto's branding, and then there would be a little afterward just to tie things up. So the first section is there to help the user understand what place branding is, what are the goals, the process, the pitfalls, etc. And then they get two concrete examples of this. And on the right hand side of the slide here, you can see the full 32-page book outline. In terms of a mood for the book, I've chosen two options. This first one here is a minimalist look with a lot of white space, bold use of type, simple illustrations, etc. This one is quite appealing and kind of sits in the background so that the city brandings can take the forefront. The second option has some stronger color choices, some texture, potentially some more hand style illustrations or lo-fi imagery. I like this one a lot. It will be a little more difficult to make sure it doesn't interfere with the branding of Melbourne and Porto. For the grid design, I've gone with a very flexible 12 by 12 arrangement with 5mm gutters. 12 can be divided a lot of different ways if I want even columns, or I can use it to offset blocks in interesting ways. The two example spread layouts here, one is a kind of magazine style text heavy layout, the other is a bit more like a photographic book with blocks laid out in interesting offsets. For typeface options, I've got two here. This first one uses a chunky slab serif font. This one's called Museo Slab. And the idea here is to provide a good contrast with the two branding choices of Melbourne and Porto, both of which use sans serif fonts. One's kind of narrow in the case of Melbourne, and the other is big and round and Helvetica-like. So this should provide quite a contrast to those. For the callouts and smaller text, I've used Tablet Gothic, which is a sans serif font. The second option is to go something a little bit more futuristic, which also contrasts with the city brands. This is a typeface here called Tachyon for the headings, and then a Helvetica similar kind of font called Proxima Nova for the bulk of the text. And lastly, some cover design options. So we've got some rough concepts here. The few of them are based around geometric kind of shapes of city skylines, either as silhouettes or as 3D blocks. And then we've got three using line drawings, whether single line kind of skylines or something a little bit more illustrative. And then the last option is actually the maps of Porto and Melbourne merged together around their rivers. Thank you for your time.